Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Mike Grundy, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm going good, thanks.
Good. See you in the car there. What's going on? Are you at the gym, at home? What's happening?
I'm in my car at the minute because in my house is hectic at the minute because I've got a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old just coming from school. So
right, gotcha.
We're all excited. We're waiting for the tea, but yeah, they're
Nice.
hectic, so it's more peaceful in the car.
Wow. Yeah, just getting this. I get the feeling that maybe with a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, you might be escaping to the car or the shed or something every now and again just to escape the chaos.
That's right, yeah.
Well, look, Mike, when we do this show, what we like to do with our guests is we like to kind of take them way back to kind of let us know kind of where they grew up and particularly whether they felt like they were always good with confrontational situations. Like I know myself, always been useless with confrontation, but whenever you speak to fighters, you seem to get a load of different answers, whether it be that no, they weren't very good with it and fighting made them better, or martial arts, I should say, maybe made them better. Or is it something that you've always been very comfortable with? So where did you grow up, and did you feel like it was important to be tough in the area you grew up in?
Yeah, I mean, I was brought up in Wigan, which is probably, I'd say, a tough town, old coal miners town anyway, you know. So it was is where wrestling originated. So it was very like the coal miners used to wrestle on the dinner hour and do bets and stuff like that. So it was a very tough town anyway, you know. So yeah, I was brought up there, and probably why I started wrestling there. I was brought up with 4 other siblings. So I had 3 sisters, 1 brother. So there's 5 of us, and my mum and dad in a small house in Wigan. So yeah, I had to wrestle to get my tea, put it that way, because there's quite a few of us. So it was, and I was the second to youngest. So, but yeah, Wigan's quite a tough town, and I'd say that, yeah. But I mean,
and were you comfortable with that? Were you comfortable with it being a tough town? Like that didn't bother you? You could handle yourself well from an early age.
I'd say so, yeah. But I never liked confrontation. So I never really liked confrontation. I didn't really like. I was out of my comfort zone. Do you know what I mean? When there's any kind of disagreements.
And how did the wrestling start? So you started to wrestle at a young age. You're talking about like the coal miners like wrestling each other on their lunch breaks and all that kind of stuff, which sounds bonkers to me. They're doing a day of coal mining. You're going to be tired enough as it is without having a wrestle. But how did it start for you? Because wrestling was that your first martial art?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So wrestling started for me. But my friends were just going to go because there was a place like a few miles away from mine. My friends were going to go, and that was it. Really, I was quite. I just went and asked my dad. I asked my dad at the time, could I go to wrestling? Because my friends were going to go, and I didn't know that he wrestled from a kid. He'd done a couple of years himself, you know, when he was a kid. So then I went down, and the coach said to me, you know, I did 1 session. He said, you could be good. You know, you're quite talented. I was quite a small kid, for my age anyway, but I was just good at getting out of positions and not getting pinned really. So the coach, you know, built my confidence up by telling me that I could be all right, you know, and that's why I latched onto it really, just because that coach said to me that you could be good, because that built my confidence.
It's fascinating when you talk about wrestling and the kind of the history of it within Wigan, because I was going to ask you, like, you know, in the States, we see that all fighters are generally, and most students at some point wrestle. It's very much part of the sort of curriculum over there. Whereas in the UK, I guess, you know, people of sort of my generations that follow would either do karate or box or Muay Thai, and obviously. And was you aware that outside of Wigan, maybe wrestling wasn't quite as big as what it was in your home county?
Yeah, I mean, even in Wigan, you know, there is now. There's a few more wrestling gyms, but it's all rugby in Wigan, really. It's a rugby town. But yeah, I mean, I knew it wasn't popular. It wasn't, like I said, my friends who did start originally with me, they stopped after a year or so, or less than a year, and went into rugby. There was only me who carried on with wrestling. So yeah, I knew it's not popular at all in UK, but you know, we have still got some talent knocking about in the UK, but I understand it's not popular really here. And in like you say, in America, it's you know, it's very popular. They got it in the schools, they have it in the sessions really. But I was quite fortunate at a young age. There was a coach who come over to UK from America to help UK wrestling. So his job was over here for 5 years. He had a 5-year contract to come over to UK to try and get it in schools and try and build it up in wrestling. That was when I was like 8, 9 year old. So he opened his own gym when he was here for about the 5, 6 years he was here. And I was wrestling with him. So I got good grassroots from an American coach who was actually reserved to go to the Olympics at his time. So I had good grassroots really, but it just never took off for him to develop wrestling over here. There's just the schools. When he went into the schools, they wasn't really interested in wrestling. It was all football and rugby.
Which, but I guess having that kind of influence on you paid off, because I'm correct me if I'm wrong. You represented the country and won bronze in the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I've referencing my country since I was like 15, 16, through the cadet years and the junior and then the senior years. Like I said, I was fortunate during my wrestling career, because even when I got to senior level, the Olympics was coming to obviously to London in 2012. So at 17-year-old, I was took on the world class program to be ready for that. So I was one of the only athletes that ever got paid to actually wrestle. There's never been anyone who's got any money to train full time and wrestle really. But so yes, through my career, I was fortunate enough to get sent over to Russia, sent over to America, sent over to like all Eastern Europe countries to train for months on end really. So I did sacrifice my life to wrestling as well.
Was there different techniques or styles when you went to these places? Like, were you able to kind of go, oh, the Russians do it like this, the Americans do it like that? Was it different going to those places and seeing different styles of wrestling?
Yeah, definitely. Back when I was wrestling, the Russians was very dominant compared to anyone else in the world really at that time. Now the Americans have started to come back around and started to take over again, but the different style of the Russians compared to the wrestlers to the Americans, for example, the Russians were just very relaxed, comfortable in any kind of position. They'd be half going on the back and they're getting out of it, and it's just a different style. Where the Americans were very well conditioned, very explosive, and just powerhouses. They kind of tried to work their opponents down and then start capitalizing.
Am I right in saying that your journey, your sort of transition into mixed martial arts came via, I presume, training, like offering sort of training within wrestling to Terry Ettim, obviously former UFC legend.
So back when I was on the world class program and I was training, Terry come down. I think he was having his second second fight in the UFC, and he come down because he was against a wrestler. He come down to the Olympic Training Center and to train wrestling. And then when he was there, he asked me would I come to Liverpool to train with him and do some wrestling, more wrestling rounds with him and stuff, because once a week wrestling isn't enough, So, and then I said, yeah, I'll come down. So I went down to there and started doing a couple of times a week and just doing some wrestling with Terry, really helping him get ready for his fight in the UFC. And after the session, I got talked into doing some jiu-jitsu. So I started rolling and stuff with the lads. I didn't have a clue what I was doing at that. I was just obviously trying to pin them, even though they was already on the back. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what was going on, but yeah. And the coach then said, you could be all right. Would you ever be interested in fighting? I said, yeah, I'd be interested in fighting after like the 2012 Olympics, because that's my dream, that's my goal. And and that was it from there. And I tried a bit of Thai boxing as well. So I just got latched on because it was just something new. I'd wrestled from 6-year-old, so I'd done a lot of wrestling. I traveled the world wrestling, and then this was just a new challenge for me, doing mixed martial arts. So I ended up transitioning to mixed martial arts in 2010 after the first Commonwealth Games I went to in India.
One of the things I wanted to ask was, it must have been such a moment to represent your country in the Commonwealth Games, and there's such patriotism, like when you watch the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics and you hear that national anthem and you see these people representing the Great Britain. How does that compare to sort of making that walk to the octagon and fighting in the UFC? Does that feel like you're representing the UK as much, or does it feel slightly different? What's the sort of differences that exist there?
Yeah, there is a difference. You know what I mean? I think you hold yourself different as well. You know, while you're competing in the Olympics or Commonwealth Games and you're representing your country. You know, but I mean, I still feel now. You know, although I've got a Commonwealth Games medal, I still feel, winning in the UFC, my debut, is still probably one of my biggest achievements. Probably just because of the magnitude of how it is. You know, my life changed the day after I won my UFC debut. When I won the Commonwealth Games medal, I got a slight change. You know, a lot more people knew I was, but it was definitely not the reaction I got from winning my UFC debut. So maybe that's why it feels like that. But still, my medal in the Commonwealth Games, it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Do you
Just
remember
because,
that first like MMA fight, like in terms of the nerves of it? Was it any different to like competing in wrestling? Because obviously you've been competing for a long time by the time you got to like your first MMA fight and obviously your UFC debut. But were the nerves different? Was it a different feeling going into the cage, the octagon, than it was getting on the mats and wrestling?
to be honest, because I was like, I was one of the best. I was probably the best in the country for a long time through wrestling. So I was always the one who went to the competitions, and like I said, I was one of the only ones who really got paid. So I actually felt a lot more pressure wrestling than I did fighting. Than I do fighting,
Really?
So although yeah, you're not getting punched and kicked and all that type of stuff, but just I felt there was a lot more pressure wrestling because there was a lot more probably asked of me when I go and compete. I was always expected to medal, I was expected to win, and you felt that with from the people who was around you within the wrestling community. But so yeah, I'd say I felt more pressure wrestling and I felt a lot more nerves wrestling. But walking out to the UFC debut, I was nervous. Obviously, yeah, there's no one who can say they don't get nervous. You know, everyone gets nervous. But to be honest, that was a very relaxed day for me. To be honest, I felt really at home. I felt really comfortable.
Do you have a technique for dealing with nerves? Like, is it something that just comes naturally to you, or is there like a method, a thing you do to go, okay, I'm nervous, I'll go through this routine or whatever it might be?
No, I don't really have a routine as such. I did, like back when I was a bit younger, I did, suffer from nerves where I wouldn't perform sometimes, and that was in wrestling. But I kind of adopted the fact when I got a little bit older. I kind of thought of it as, listen, this is fun. Why did I start? Why did I start fighting, or why did I start wrestling? I did it because it was fun. I did it because I enjoyed it. I did it because it built my confidence. So I kind of always, thought of them times. I always thought that, like, well, this has got to be fun to me, so I've got to be able to laugh, and it's about the team around you as well, I think. And we've got a great team around us in Team Carbon. So, but nerves is something you're always going to get. I'm competing this weekend against Aljamain Sterling and Polaris. And, of course, I'm going to get nervous. But end of the day, I started this sport because I enjoy it. And that's what I always remind myself. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to enjoy it.
I mean, we're obviously going to talk about Polaris before this podcast is done. It's a fascinating matchup for this weekend coming. But I want to just sort of go back to your UFC career for the moment, Mike. And I'd like to ask you, how much do you think the pandemic affected your journey in the UFC?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, without sounding like I'm making excuses or anything like that, I think a lot of things affected my career in the UFC. I feel I should. I feel I have a lot more to offer in the UFC. I feel I could have got a lot further in the UFC. But yeah, the pandemic did not help my career at all because obviously, I think there was two fights maybe cancelled during that.
Yeah.
I was supposed to fight Macron the first time, and then obviously, I was supposed to fight Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz, I was actually in London, ready to fly the day after. I got sent home because one of the team got COVID. So, and
Yeah.
to be honest, at the time, I think Nick Lentz was a perfect fight for me at that time. So, and I think there is a lot of, although we all train hard, I think there's a lot of luck involved in this sport due to the right match at the right time and all that type of stuff. I think that's all important. And I just didn't get that luck on my side with the right match and the right time kind of thing. So, yeah, I think the pandemic definitely did because it's cancelled me two fights.
Yeah, yeah. I've also seen a post on your social media, and and not looking past what's coming up at this weekend, but your mixed martial arts career. I see that you posted that you'd had a conversation with Dan Hardy, and he was talking to you all things PFL. Like, is there any more kind of developments there? Can you tell us anything about that? Does that appeal to you?
PFL does appeal to me. PFL's kind of always appealed to me, to be honest. After the UFC, due to the tournament and stuff like that. But yeah, I had not long ago, Dan Hardy messaged me, and I kind of, me and my son had a wrestling match, and I kind of retired from wrestling. We had a bet going on for years, and when he turned 18, I said, right, when you turn 18, we have a wrestling match, me versus you, because he was giving some stick. So we
Can you just explain
anyway.
to us, because I've heard you say this, like, what was he giving you stick about? Because it's quite funny.
Yeah, he was giving me stick because I got a bronze in the Commonwealth Games and not a gold. So Jack was a good wrestler at the time. He was probably about, I don't know, 10 or 12-year-old. And I got a bronze at that time. And he said, oh, it's a bronze. You know, give me some stick for getting a bronze rather than a gold. And I said, all right, when you turn 18, me and you are going to wrestle. Okay. So we agreed on it. We shook hands and everyone just latched onto it. All the family got onto it. And then it started, people, even like BT Sports were asking me questions about it. So a lot of people asked and everyone got onto it. And eventually he turned 18, obviously. And that was only like a few months ago. So we wrestled and we did it at a charity event. We raised the money and originally it was going to go to my dad, but sadly my dad passed in April. So because he was terminally ill. And I just give the money to my mum. So we raised like 5,000 for my mum and just give my mum to put towards a funeral and things like that. So it was a good cause. Anyway, I retired from wrestling. I always said the last wrestling match will be against my son when he turns 18. And it was. So I hung my boots up there, my wrestling boots. I'll never wrestle again. I mean, I'll grapple and I'll fight, but not wrestling. So the day after, Dan Hardy congratulated me on my wrestling career and said, you know, would you be interested in coming to PFL if you're still interested in fighting? And of course, you know, that's where I'd love to be. It sounds like he wants me in the European tournament next year, maybe first. And then, you know, obviously you win that, you kind of get automatically into the global tournament, which is the big one, really, which is, you know, hopefully I can get in the European next year and then get in the global and then walk off into the sunset with $1 million.
Amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Obviously, firstly, condolences with regards to your dad. That must have been incredibly difficult because I know that you were speaking before the Makwan Amirkhani fight about his diagnosis. Obviously, you don't have to talk too much about it if you don't want to. But I just want to know, because we hear a lot of stories about fighters going through huge amounts of adversity and then still having to fight. How difficult was that for you with your dad's diagnosis? And, you know, you hadn't fought for a little bit and you're then coming in to fight a dangerous guy in Amirkhani. And you've got all that going on in the background. Was that a very difficult thing to get through? How much did that affect you in the build up to that fight and the fight itself?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was going through it, I didn't really think it affected me too much. But when I've looked back and a few people said you could tell you wasn't right, you know, and I look back on the video and things like that. And obviously, me when I walk out, I usually walk out quite calm and cool. You know, I'm just a slow. I walk out slow. This time I was like a bit different. You know, my emotions were different. I was running out. I was slapping everyone's hand and stuff like that. So I felt that looking back, I felt it did affect me. You know, but at first I didn't think it did. But I think it did after watching back and. You know, having a good thinking about it, taking time off and stuff like that. I think it did affect me. The fact that my dad, you know, was obviously terminally ill, because my dad was obviously a massive part of my career. Coached me as a kid, helped coach me as a kid as a wrestler. You know, he'd never missed a fight. I fought in Japan, I fought in Brazil. Every fight he'd been with me, you know. So it was a tough time for me. Probably the hardest process I've ever had to follow by losing my dad and going through the terminal illness and stuff like that. But yeah. I think it did affect me for the fight, which is probably why I rushed a little bit, you know, during the fight. And obviously he was in the crowd as well, and I gave him a hug just before it. And looking back on that, I could see, you know, my face changed slightly when I gave him a hug and things like that. So that's why I thought, yeah, maybe it did affect me.
Yeah. Understandably, completely. And looking forward, looking to the future, you've mentioned your son, you mentioned the wrestling match. Is there anything that you've learned in your fight career that you think's one of the most important things that you'd like to pass on to him? Because I know he's doing an amateur MMA fight coming up, isn't he? He's got something coming up.
He's had 5 amateurs. He's 5-0. Well, he's 5-0.
5. Yeah.
He's got another one coming up soon on the Anthony Pettis show on the 20th of October in Manchester. So he's going to fight on that, which he's got a good fight, to be honest. But yeah, if there's anything I'd pass on, to be honest, there's so many things, everything. So any mistake I've ever made, he won't make now. Do you know what I mean? Anything I've ever done good, he's going to do the same. You know, he takes everything on board. He takes all my knowledge. He knows where I've been. He knows what I've done. And he listens to me. Not many people listen to the dads, but he generally does listen to me, you know, so, which is good. But yeah.
You'll have to tell us all that secret, because there's going to be a lot of dads out there going, I can't make my son listen to me, mate.
Yeah, well, the thing is, me and him wrestle, so I can wrestle and beat him.
That's it. So beat him in a wrestling match and they have to listen. That's good.
I mean, we've spoken a lot, you know, about how inspirational, you know, your relationship with your father was, and now we're talking about yours with your son. You've spoken about Dan Hardy. We mentioned Terry Etim earlier. Like, as you was making that sort of transition into mixed martial arts, what sort of British fighters were inspirational to you as well within the fight game?
Terry Etim was one of my biggest inspirations, not just because he was from the same team. Like I said, just how he's handled himself. You know, he was he's a really, really nice guy. You know, he always had time.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Mike's gone. He's dropped out. He's gone. Yeah. Oh man, that's never happened to us before, is it?
Never happened. Well,
it's never happened. Let's see if we can get him.
I reckon the battery on his phone's gone. That's what I reckon.
Oh no, that'll be terrible. Well, this will be a very unsatisfactory ending. If that's how this ends.
To say that me and you were possibly massive influences on his career.
I think he was.
He can see. We're both wearing t-shirts. He could see the guns on us, and I think
he'd see the guns. That's what it was.
You know, there were a couple of dangerous mavericks.
Yeah. The dangerous mavericks are back. Right. Well, I mean, let's just fill some time. What do we do? What do we do here? Let's hope that Mike comes back. The other thing is, we could potentially edit this. Yeah, but are you onto Mike now?
I'm just having a little look now on the
having a little message. Well, look, if we are going to carry on with this as if it's live, we have got another great interview coming your way that we have recorded where it didn't drop out. No. And it's with Chris the Problem Duncan, and that'll be coming your way probably in a few days from when this comes out, I guess. Monday maybe. Yeah, it was a great interview. We had a great interview with Chris, who I believe is he 2-0 in the UFC now? Yes. I think he's 2-0 in the UFC. Lightweight, been training over at ATT with Dustin Poirier, with Jorge Masvidal, Yaroslav Amosov, and it's the same gym, I believe, as Johnny Eblin, who had a fantastic win against Fabian Edwards the other night. So we've got a great interview coming your way.
I'll tell you what's
coming. This one,
everyone's way as well, because I was scrolling through my Instagram today, and the UFC posted a little video about a watch along. Mr. Blake Harrison's face was in it.
Really? I've not seen this.
Yeah, it was a bit of footage from. It's talking about the Makhachev fight, and it was showing some footage of the last one. You sitting there with former guest of the show Jack Shaw and Rob Beckett, and former guest of the show Nick Pete. Yeah. You're famous, mate. Got your face.
Mate, I've not even seen this. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Oh, that's quite nice. Well, yeah. So it looks. I think I can talk about it. I think it's all happening. I don't want to jinx it too much. Touch wood. But yeah, on the 21st of October, UFC 294, Makhachev Oliveira is in Abu Dhabi. It's going to be a good time for the UK. And if you don't fancy listening to the commentary, you can hit your cheeky red button or use, I think it's the Discovery Plus app now or whatever. And you can watch me, and I don't know exactly who else. It might be Rob Beckett again. It might be another fire. I don't know what's going on. But there's going to be a few of us there kind of having a little watch along, chatting through the fights, hopefully making some light-hearted banter about what's going on. And
I've got a
Go on.
word. I
Got a
feel like I
word.
should put my finger in my ear, like we're
Oh
doing
yes,
this like
go
some
on.
kind of live.
Go.
I've got an update. I can tell you that Mike Grundy has just messaged to say, sorry, the battery has just gone on my phone. What do we do? And I just said, jump back on. So let's see what happens.
Let's see if he comes back on. But yeah, if you don't like listening to the commentary, go on to, I don't know if it's like TNT Sports, Red Button or whatever, and you can do a little watch along with us on the 21st of October for the Makachev fight, which should hopefully be a really good laugh as well. There'll probably be tickets available for it. It'll be in London. I think it'll be the same place as last time.
What was it last
which
time?
Was in Bank. I can't remember exactly where it was. It was like a bar in Bank that was very good. Loads of big screen TVs everywhere to watch the fights.
He's back.
Good food and drink. He's back. Grundy's back. Oh, we filled that time perfectly. He's back. Here he is. Where is he?
Hello,
Mike. Hello, we can hear you. We can't
not
see
me,
you.
though?
Can't
Sorry,
see you,
2 seconds.
mate. That's all
Let me
right,
try and
mate.
get back.
Here we go. Hold the line, caller. This is going to be an interesting one. I can't remember what our last question was. No, don't worry, mate. These things happen.
We can't let this interview finish before we actually speak about this weekend.
There
He's
we
back.
go.
There he is.
Go.
Yes, we got you back, Mike. We got you back. So let's speak about Polaris. It's this weekend against it's in Wales and it's sold out as far as I'm aware. Aljamain Sterling is your opponent. Obviously, recently defeated bantamweight champion in the UFC, so a huge name to be taking on. It was originally supposed to be Nathaniel Wood, but he's got a short notice fight, I believe, on an Abu Dhabi card, UFC 294, that we were actually just speaking about. And no, Mike, what have you got again? Mike, no. What have you got again? Mike, dear Lord, what is happening?
Oh, the MMA gods do not like us
they
today,
do
Harrison.
Not want this to happen. Jesus Christ!
I'll tell you what. If you was going to get on the mats with Aljo this Saturday, right, in Polaris, Blake, what outfit are you going for? You going for leotard?
Oh, I don't know. What should I do? Should I wear leotard? What, like scare him off? With like a mankini? Yeah, if I went full mankini and like kind of like scare him off, like you take me down too hard, you might be getting a ball in your face.
Yeah, you could come loose at any point.
Yeah, I could come loose at any point. We're talking like a thin bit of thread, just holding in everything barely. There's definitely some pubes like escaping.
Welcome to the mat, Blake. The boys may be at the barracks, Harrison.
The pubes are definitely like coming outside.
There's spiders' legs all over the place.
There's spiders' legs everywhere, mate. There's a few extra limbs that you got to contend with me. There's those midriff spider legs, those hairy boys just coming out to get you. A little bit of extra purchase on those takedowns and that grappling.
How you kill time. You picture Blake Harrison in a leotard with his pubes all over the place.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, that's the thing. MMA fighters, they're all shaving. I'm letting it go, baby. I'm just letting it grow out.
Absolutely.
Blake Full Bush Harrison. That's who you're getting. Oh man. What are we going to do?
I don't know.
Like most of an episode, but we're not. Oh, mate, he's probably run out of battery again or something.
Oh, this is...
Well, look, Mike Grundy is taking on Aljamain Sterling, as you said. It's sold out in Wales. I can't remember the arena now. But he's taking him on in Polaris in a grappling match. Was originally supposed to be Nathaniel Wood, but Nathaniel Wood got a short notice fight against Naimov in Abu Dhabi, so he's had to take that. And Mike Grundy steps in. He steps in. It should be a really interesting battle between the two of them. I don't really know what I'll say. Obviously, we need to ask him about it.
I'm loving that Aljo is in the UK. And
yes,
if you're in Wales, and I mean, obviously there is a huge MMA community in Wales, and I'm presuming we're going to see some of the Sure MMA boys have got to be there, right?
You would think. I would
have thought so, and I'm sure there might be some of the fighters on the card as well. You never know, but
never know.
What a moment getting to see Aljo rolling around the mats. That's fantastic. I mean, we've seen a lot of it at the moment. Have you seen any footage of Gilbert Burns? I believe it's Everton players.
He's in Everton. Yeah, he's with all the Everton players, like teaching them how to hit pads and all that kind of stuff. Gilbert Burns has all of a sudden become quite a good follow on social media. He's putting out all sorts of crazy content now. I think he's doing quite well for himself, old Gilby Burns. I really want to know what he's going to do with the Luke Gary fight.
Well,
I really want to know, like, because they're mates. So, like, he's mates with Gary, but he's also very, very good mates with Luke. So I can only imagine he's going to be in Luke's corner. But that'll be awkward as hell, won't it?
Have you seen the kind of the sort of banter between them?
No.
So Ian Gary's it's all very, very friendly. Like Ian Gary's,
yeah, as it should be. Yeah,
I love you, Vincente. Like, we're gonna fight. Yeah, let's put on a show. And then Luke sent something very similar in his post as well. So it looks like they're just going to make it happen, and it's going to be it should be an absolute fucking cracker, right?
Do you know what? I mean, firstly, as a fight, it's a phenomenal fight. It's a really great all-action fight. Also, I think actually there might be something really good about this match for Ian Gary and his relationship with the fans, because I think with the photo that he had on his T-shirt of Jeff Neal with the mugshot, and then some of the Neil Magny stuff, even though Neil Magny was the one in the wrong with what he said about, the whooping he's going to put on Ian Gary to his kid and all that kind of stuff, whatever. If you don't know about that, go and look it up. And Ian Gary kind of bringing that up. For some reason, Ian Gary got a lot of flack for that. And a lot of people, I think, started to get frustrated with Ian. There's the whole Conor comparisons, which I get, but I think it's just who he is.
If you're a confident Irishman in MMA, it's impossible not to.
Exactly. This is just going to happen. But yeah, so I think seeing him in a build up to a fight, being nothing but respectful, having fun with his opponent in a positive, friendly way, could actually kind of bring fans back around to him. Because I mean, obviously he's still going to have loads of fans that love him anyway, but fans that have maybe gone off him slightly, and there are a few, you only have to go through the socials to see that that's happening. But the fans that have gone off him anyway, they might come back round to him. If he puts on a really good, exciting fight against Vicente Luque, wins in style, and the build up to it has been nothing but respect and love and friendly banter, and then post-fight, he'll probably do something similar. That might actually bring people back round to him, and it'll get more fans on his side again. So this could actually be brilliant matchmaking for him.
And good friend of Ian Gary's. And when we saw him win the Cage Warriors strap, there was all sorts of stuff going on behind the scenes with his corner, and he had no corner until right at the last minute, and he was cornered by current champ Paul Hughes. And we've recently seen pictures of Paul Hughes and Ian Gary sitting there having dinner with Conor, and a real kind of wall of Irish MMA stars there. And what we've since seen is Paul Hughes announced he's going up a weight in Cage Warriors. So I don't know what's going on. I thought we might have seen Paul Hughes get a UFC contract, because he's been quiet for a long time, and he's an absolute devil of a fighter, and I think the UFC would be a
devil of a fighter. Oh, he's an absolute devil of a fighter, that boy. Oh, an absolute devil of a fighter. Did you see him on his horse going after that fox? Oh, yeah. What devil of a man. What an absolute devilish, fiendish man. Fiendish old chap. Paul Hughes, that fiendish chap.
I'd like to know what's going on.
Well, I think, it's interesting with Paul. It's so tricky, because from Paul's point of view, you've done enough to be in the UFC. You've done enough. Now, I don't know, but I can only assume he's been offered Contender Series fights and he's turned them down. I've done enough. But then when you're looking at it merit by merit, George had a Contender Series fight and he'd done more than Paul, because he defended that belt twice. So I can see why the UFC, in good fashion, so I can see why the UFC go, hang on a minute, you've got champions that have done more than you coming into the Contender Series. What makes you so special? But I can see it from Paul's point of view as well, that he's going, no, I've unified belts. I've fought some really tough guys at featherweight in Morgan Charrier, who's in the UFC now, and Jordan Buchanan, obviously, who he put on an incredible, brutal display against Jordan Buchanan. And he's got people like Ian Gary vouching for him. So I can see it from both sides of the coin. Clearly, it hasn't worked out with the UFC, and he is now coming back to Cage Warriors to go up in weight. And I suppose maybe he's saying, look, if I go and prove myself a 2-weight champion, then I'm undeniable, and the UFC will have to just give me a contract. Maybe that's been established. Obviously, Graham Boylan has a great relationship with the UFC. Maybe he's got involved and said, look, if he comes back here, wins 2 belts, will he get straight in? Whatever. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. He definitely deserves a UFC contract, but so did George Hardwick. And unfortunately, George came up short in his Contender Series fight, and now will probably have to go back to Cage Warriors himself. But then, as we were saying to Mike Grundy just now, the PFL is always an option. These fighters are like, no, it's UFC or bust, UFC or bust. But they can make good money in the PFL. Yeah. And they can do really well in the PFL, some of these guys. I get that the fame isn't there. The social media following won't be there. The sponsorships won't be there. So there is that to consider.
I'm not worried about any of that because he's got a nice, cool meal in his back pocket.
Well, yeah, there's that, isn't there? So... who knows? I mean, personally, I think if you're a young fighter, if you can go and do well in the PFL, especially if you can win that £1 million and you're still hungry after that, try and go to the UFC after that. You might have to take a little bit of a pay cut, but if it means that much to you to go to the UFC, why not get more experience in the PFL first and then go over? I don't know, unless you never know what's going on behind the scenes politically with these people. Maybe there's a lot of people in the UFC going, if any fighter goes to the PFL, then they're not coming over here or something like that. I don't know. You never know. It's the fight business. These things do happen. It can get a bit petty. It can get a bit sour. So yeah, but I definitely, to me, it seems like it would be a good option to go there, get more experience on a global scale, global shows, earning decent money.
Yeah.
And then go to the UFC. But
absolutely.
It is what it is.
Have we
heard from Mike?
We have heard. His battery is completely died, and he's got training now, so he's going to head off the training. He's asked if we can try and get it something else put in this week, but I think we're going to try and get this one out before the weekend anyway, because we'd obviously like to get this one out before Mike's fight in Polaris. So we'll see what we can do. But what we should say, if we can't get something sort of edited into this, then we should definitely take this opportunity to thank Mike for his time today. Wish him all the best against Aljo this weekend. We will obviously endeavour to get him back on and finish his story. I think we got the real bones of it. I think we was just getting towards the sort of close of it anyway, and talking about Polaris.
Talking about Polaris and other bits,
and maybe we get him on for a little update after the event and find out how it all went and speak to the man himself.
Yes, we'll see. Just burping in the middle of a chat here, very professional. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode and you've enjoyed us just rambling. I'm assuming we're keeping in the rambles and we're not going to edit it out. We're just keeping the general bullshit chat that we've been doing over the last 10 minutes or so. But yeah, so thank you so much.
Pubes.
Leotard pubes. That sounds like I don't know, like a Jacobean character or so, like a fop. Oh, Leotard pubes. Oh, yes, I know him. Leotard pubes. Ah, Leotard pubes. Nice to see you.
With him.
I was at Eton with Leotard pubes. Great fellow. French lineage.
Also, Leotard pubes just sounds like, I was at the Dog and Duck in Camden. I saw Leotard Pube's first ever show. It was incredible. What a
band. He's more than just a musician. It's like an artistic experience when you go and see Leotard Pubes.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a real artiste. He's Leotard Pubes. Listen, if you enjoyed today's episode with Mike, know that there's way more in the back catalogue as well with all the superstars of the UK MMA scene. We've been so blessed as well to speak to so many of the stars of the UFC and other organisations much further afield than the UK as well. Names I'm talking about like Jamal Hill, Alexander Volkanovski, Tyron Woodley, Derek Brunson, Who else? Who we had from overseas? Dan
Do you know
Hooker.
what? All I'm thinking is for the artwork for this show, can we have Mike Grundy, but also me in a leotard with really big pubes? Is that
Yes,
possible for like
yeah,
the artwork? Can we do
I'm
that?
picturing
So
you
it's
in
like
kind of.
Mike Grundy, like special guest Mike Grundy with a special appearance from leotard pubes. Is
Yeah,
that possible?
yeah,
Yeah. All right,
absolutely.
we'll do
I
that.
want you looking like Rick McManus or Kendo Nakasaki, a proper old school UK 80s wrestler in a leotard. That's what I want.
You've lost me, mate. You've shown your age there. I'm like, who the fuck are these people? I was like, Rick Moranis, what from Ghostbusters? So, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. What's he got to do with it?
Oh dear. Look, we're back next time. In the meantime, go check out that back catalogue that we mentioned. If you've not checked us out on YouTube yet, go give us a watch and subscribe over there. And yeah, we'll be back very, very soon with an episode with Chris Duncan. Make sure you enjoy that. Tune into Polaris this weekend and watch Mike fight Aljo.
Bye, guys.
Bye.